So welcome. Thank you very much for all turning up, frankly. It's, it's really exciting to be part of, as with the IAB hat on, or with a sort of media owner hat on, something like this that I feel is kind of, it's a community creating an event for itself under the guidance of the IAB, whose raison d'etre is to kind of represent the industry, and the core roles that most of you are in, or that the theme of the event around adults is one that, for a while some of us have felt have been underrepresented. So to have and to see the Standards and Guidelines Council of the IAB come together as a group and sort all this out, and for you guys to commit, buy the tickets and come along is fantastic. So well done to all of you for being here. And look, ultimately what we want to do is, and that is all of us, that's you and us as a general entity, is build that community of people in ad operations, which is a very broad term, let's face it, that face similar challenges and see similar opportunities day in, day out, in what is a very sort of fluid and evolving ecosystem. So the ability and the opportunity is quite rare, in my opinion, in ad operations, which is something I've done or been involved with for a very long time. I was trafficking in the late 90s. I probably haven't been in a platform hands-on that much the last 4 or 5 years, but it's very close to my heart, as I think all of my staff know. And what you find is a genuine honesty and a genuine, let's resolve and try and work out these problems together, and kind of everyone can calm down a little bit about who's talking to who. And it's already happening here. I can see it at lunch, and it's fantastic. So to have, whether it's ad networks, publishers, ad tech vendors, agencies, whether some direct clients, I'm not sure, agency trading desks in one room operationally, understanding that it's a community of all of us that can own this, something that I hope, we all hope will become something a little bit special, and essentially owned by you guys, which is the thinking around having a hashtag for today, obviously, being interactive as possible, but also to kind of start with a LinkedIn group where there's a sense of ownership. We kind of work out where we want to take this type of event. Certainly the intent is to have follow-up events not only in Sydney but also in Melbourne. There's commitment already from a few in the group and some of our very kind sponsors around potentially doing stuff in states like Brisbane and Perth. We always feel a little bit unloved and underrepresented, and I think it's important to do something that even is just a little bit social. So that's something we can all work out together, hence the intent of kind of having a group somewhere like LinkedIn or whatever will work out. There'll be something that will make work functionally, that allows it to be representative of everyone in the room. So we have some interactive things going on also. We have a photo booth, which I believe is out there. No, it's over there, right? Sorry, Mel, I would have let you down in the instructions. You told me about 47 times. So the process, there it is. Right, good. Sponsored by SAS, so thank you very much, SAS, for that. There's a prize for the, I imagine, the most creative photo taken, so get involved. Badges networking. So there's a name on the back of your badge, and you need to find that person, take a photo, send it to the appropriate hashtag, and there will be a prize. Not supposed to be, but there's going to be one. Sorry, Mel. We'll sort out a prize. It's kind of fun. And all the networking will happen later at the drinks. That's as important in terms of how we work together in the evening and the day, in my opinion. My staff certainly know that. So welcome. But, I mean, as much as, thank you for the IAB for putting this together, and it kind of fits in with the purpose of the IAB as an organisation, which I'm very proud to be involved with, but obviously having key sponsors that will support something that, is essentially a little bit left field. It can't happen without them, so please give a quick hand to Crux. A few of the guys here today. Pascal's coming up to talk later, Joe's on a panel. And also SAS. Thank you very much, guys. And in fact, I was with Ben last night. Ben Williams from SAS, you'll hear him speak later. We spent a bit of time in the States recently and known common people for a long time. So we were having our usual athletic diet of beers and chips last night together during this storm, and just deciding that we could go out for the storm. It was just too dangerous, I have to stay and have a few more beers. And Ben, I'm afraid to say, I've got to call it out, took a taxi ride that was about 150 metres to get to his hotel. It was pretty torrential. I didn't take that option. I looked like a drowned rat, and my key didn't work, so I had to go down to reception. It was all very embarrassing. I should have done the Ben thing. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone take a taxi.
It was all covered.
Okay.
Roof over everything.
I'm just seeking pity. Anyway, thank you guys. It would not happen without your support. And of course, PwC hosting us. Megan Brownlow is very involved with the IAB, and obviously part of the way that we operationally, the operation rhythm of us. They're one of our partners in the IAB, so giving us this fantastic space and allowing us to run this event. Thank you. Thank you very much. Here's the agenda. So I'm your warm-up act to kind of get you going. Then we're moving on to, we're trying to look at themes that are relevant for all of you. So it's not just kind of the day-to-day and the workflows and this, that, and the other, about you and your careers and where you want to go. Because I think ADOPS is a great starting point or finishing point. It's got a high vertical career path now, but it also, there's breadth in it in terms of what you want to do. It's a great basis. So looking at, with REA looking at some strategies to drive revenue. In the end, it's all about money, let's face it, when it comes to digital advertising. But we're trying to look at themes that are relevant for everyone. And this is the sort of thing that can evolve as we go through the various events. Programmatic, hot topic, obviously. Various trends, then we've got the vendors talking a little bit. We'll have a panel, and it's, that's a superstar. Very pleased with that. Shame about the chair, eh? And then we'll get into careers and do some ceremony certificate handing out for those that have passed the ops certification stamp of quality. Thank you very much for listening, Mark. All good? I haven't forgotten anything? Good, that's rare. So I thought, as an opener, 20 minutes or so, just to warm you up in terms of mainly about you lot, actually, or all of us. But in terms of, if I'm allowed to be a little bit patronising as a fat old guy, been doing stuff for a long time, to kind of see what I think is relevant for you individually and your organisations in terms of where things are going, what it can mean for all of us, and see if it can show some relevance in terms of topics and themes for what we're going to do all day today. And the first thing is around, the timing of what's going on. If you think about the things that are happening around us, in terms of the way that the ecosystem evolves and everything that you're involved in at the very heart of the business, your time is kind of now in terms of the roles that you have and everything that you're touching day in, day out. And sometimes it's kind of hard when you're in the detail to kind of actually pull up and see what you're involved in day to day and the impact and influence that it has. And amongst all the sort of noise and hot topics, and I'll try and distill some of those for you in a bit, it's important to remember that you are that beating heart of what's going on. And it's something that's often forgotten about by other kind of functional areas of the business. There's this kind of idea that ops is just that bit at the end that delivers the stuff, sort of factory stuff, and it really annoys me. I'll put out some stories about that later on, but just to take kind of control of it, and that's something that I feel we can do in this event, building this type of a community, kind of understand the way that things are evolving. You guys are fantastically well placed for the way that things will evolve. And to think of a couple of almost standard bits of advice that I'd give, and they're very general, very sort of high level, in terms of what you do every day. And having that ability to actually do what you really want to do for a living. It might not be happening right now, but certainly in ad operations as a role, or it might be as a role, there is that opportunity to evolve and to move. And often the bit that companies don't like talking about, the best thing you can do in all your careers often, don't think about up, think about sideways. It's something that actually came up when we were having a coffee as a panel downstairs. A few of us there have been doing stuff for a while, and it came up like we've moved sideways, and it's an important point to think about, particularly when you get your hands into stuff that's really, really interesting. Thinking about how things will evolve and the inevitability of certain aspects. Make sure you're always thinking about that, where you want to go, whether it really fits with what you want to do in your heart. There's a great opportunity to do that. I've done a lot of sales. I've managed sales teams also. It's sometimes hard to take salespeople, turn them into managers, or to do something with them. Some of that raw ability is just like, man, you might end up selling for the rest of your life, monthly commissions and all that kind of stuff. You don't, you know, that it's something that's a great opportunity for you as individuals to really think about, to be at times a little bit selfish about what you really, really want to do, retain that passion. And it sounds a bit fluffy and happy, but in the end, kind of doing good for organizations, like providing awesome sales, awesome service and sort of delight to internal customers such as your sales teams, which a lot of adult people do day in, day out, and it's kind of unrecognized to a point that it really annoys me. As well as, you know, internally in terms of making things better, that analysis, that reporting, those little creative fixes, all the stuff that you do is actually about making things better, making people's lives better. Retain those two kind of, they're very fluffy and very top level. But mind you, a lot of that is also about saying no. Like, no, we don't want to do that. That's stupid. You know, having the bravery to understand that you know very well as subject matter expert what to do and what not to do. To stand up for yourselves and always think what's the right thing to do. You don't have to be tactically selfish about money this month. Think strategically what's better for the next quarter or years. And it's a hard thing to do, but often adults have got to stand up and do it. It's about bravery. Retain those kind of principles. Because as I mentioned, the technological change that's happening around all of us is ever constant. And if there's one thing that is for certain, is that will be ever ongoing. Today's the slowest rate of change you'll ever experience. Because tomorrow will be faster and it will just continue that exponential growth. Now the thing is, there might be times in certain processes you're like, God, it kind of just feels like the same thing all the time. But actually what you're touching is always very different. And also ops, the stuff we put them through in terms of migrations. I think last year, my fault, sorry Alex, we essentially did 2 migrations. It was crystallized down to key 3 themes if you really think about it. So data. I mean, we all kind of been talking about it. A lot of people haven't necessarily, I think, personally, been getting their hands really dirty with it, but we're just starting to understand the potential. But if you think about it forever, all you ever did in ad servers or most platforms is actually optimize delivery. Ad servers, certainly ad servers, I mean, most platforms essentially that we touch, all of us in this room, regardless of where in the ecosystem, are just decision-making engines. They will make decisions against a bunch of variables that you chuck in there. And the fact is, with the more and more data, the more and more variables that are being thrown in. Then you end up thinking about it. Those targeting attributes that you're running line items or creators or media inventory against, the actual value is in the data piece. That granular sort of little segment or whatever those attributes are, that's the actual value. The media and inventory comes as a kind of, that's the after effect of knowing what the value of that piece of data is. Which leads to the inevitable outcome that at some stage it's, you know, all about the data. We'll be kind of essentially delivering that to one another as much as media or inventory. It's actually really fascinating. It's something that's obsessing everyone. But in the end, you get down to that bottom point. Those targeting attributes that you essentially deliver campaigns across, that's what the noise is all about when it comes down to it. Whether it's inference, who they are, even age and gender or known information, all about the data. Automation, that's not just automation in terms of buying or whatever, because 85% of what we're doing is still like emailing creators, and the amount of friction involved in media buying is ridiculous. So the automation of process just largely hits the people in this room, right? The amount of friction, the amount of effort it takes, legal and finance and contracts and Jesus Christ and emails and deadlines and blah, 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 just to get a banner live. Like, what's going on? So that automation and that seamlessness and that frictionless execution that we all get excited about is just automation. Like, let the machines take over. It's live. And attribution. So what is the value? What's the value of the end client? In the end, paying all our bills, however we chop it up between us. What's the value to them? I mean, it's a very broad subject, but in the end, it's actually about the attributional value of all that activity that, you know, is measured and validated and looked at in many, many different ways by everybody across the ecosystem, wherever you sit in the Loom chart. But it's those kind of 3 areas, just to kind of generalize it. And as a result, I think one fascinating theme to think about is just the amount of role swapping that's going on. Like, as a media owner, I recently have become more obsessed about marketing problems in terms of buying media, the attribution value of it, and what that means to clients than anything else. So I've suddenly got what I sort of thought was buy-side problems, frankly, and that's sort of what we're really, really deep into, just as a media owner. Like, how did that happen? Admittedly, audience extension isn't a new thing. Ad networks have been packaging up media for a long time, but actively going out and buying it and thinking about it from the other side of the fence is quite fascinating. And then also on the buying side, if you look at some of the business models, and it's just objective, just be objective about how people are getting paid. Talented people deserve to get paid. It doesn't really matter. This is not a judgment call. But actually a lot of what's happening are old school sell-side ad network models. You lock down inventory at a certain price that you know is premium, meets the expectations that you have and your client has. You have a price that the client is paying. There's a margin in the middle. That's what you get paid on. That's just ad nets. That's what we were doing with publishers and buyers. I'll say no, a fair amount of that. It's hard yards. But that's a business model that's looking more and more prevalent to buying entities. Nothing wrong with it. No judgment call. It's actually fascinating. If you look at it objectively and think about where things are going, how is it that sellers have become buyers, buyers have become sellers? We're all in the same ecosystem. We're all trying to solve the same problems. So anytime sort of board members get all nervous about hanging out with what are deemed competitors, understanding that digital is just a friendly relationship. It's just that you can sit with your most direct competitor and you can offer something to market that is of common value, that does not cannibalize what you're each doing, that provides greater value to the client. That sort of thinking blows a lot of traditional product people's minds. It's true and it's interesting. It's an interesting trend. That sort of gender swapping thing, but anyway. AI, artificial intelligence, they're taking that automated piece a little step further in terms of even the decisions and actions being optimized. If you think about when you optimize your campaigns every day, whatever the outcome might be, most of that is very logical steps, parameters and rules that you can build into what you're doing. And the learning of that is deemed as sort of a human task. A lot of that really is going to have sort of, that's just going to be automated, and no one in this room should fear it. If anything, you should embrace it. A lot of that stuff is the stuff you don't want to be doing day in, day out. You want the admin reduced so you can do the stuff that humans should be doing creatively that you really, really want to do. Going back to the sort of those two kind of tenets, the stuff that you want to do in your heart and the stuff that's kind of doing good in a sort of fluffy way. You know what I'm saying? Making things better, making people's lives better. You want to do more of that stuff, not the admin and tick box and all the rest of it. That's got to be reduced. Let the machines take over. Who's really terrified of this are old school salespeople. Has anyone heard of the singularity, the point of singularity? Anyone know about that? Come on, yeah. Nerds, a couple of nerds. Good. So it's quite a fascinating concept, which is essentially there's a point in time in future history, according to kind of future ball gazers or whatever you call them. Crystal gazers? Ball gazers? That's something else. Who are saying there's a point in time where there's no turning back. It's like a tipping point for technology and how humans relate to technology, where it is inevitable that machines will overtake human beings in terms of capability. Kind of interesting. 2043, I think it is. According to Ray Kurzweil from Google. But anyway, so that's not, it's kind of Skynet and Terminator and all that kind of stuff. But it's fascinating. I sometimes talk to a lot of sales guys when we talk about the stuff that we're certainly doing in the ops area and the opportunities coming out as a result. A lot of it's pretty automated. And they get kind of scared. They're like, how does this involve me? Like, well, it might not. The fact is, in sales as much as in ops, I think it's more natural for you guys to embrace it. But even in sales, the point is, it's refining the purest skill sets in sales, the stuff that they really, 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 really are good at, or the ones that are really, really, really good at it, which is about negotiation, relationships, framing the commercial arrangement, regardless of the execution. Like, just forget about the admin and all the rest of it. Let the machines take over, relax. So there may well be less of them, but at least it'll be the good ones that survive. So there isn't anything brutal about it, but it's not the end of the world, is my point. It's kind of an interesting one, but it's something to be embraced, not feared. And it's just because, there's excitement about Internet of Things and all the rest of it, but all the Internet ever was devices connecting to other devices. It's just interconnectivity, and it's just going to increase more and more and more and more. So the rate of change growing exponentially, the number of devices, honours in our pockets, potentially in us, who knows? Definitely in your car, definitely in your home, all interconnected. Just going to create a tsunami of data. There's just even more variables for us to make decisions against, whatever organisation we're in. And again, you're well placed for this big leap that I feel is closer and closer and closer to coming. You're at the heart of it, so it's something to be excited about. You know, some people are terrified by it, some people are excited about it. If you're terrified, try and get in the other camp. I really advise that, because it is exciting. I like Marketeer. I think it's Marketeer. There's a guy that does these cartoons I really like. He's in a lot of presentations. And I really sometimes worry with the product and some of the product and the process that people are going through. It's like stripping out the value, and it's just not agile enough, in my opinion, not what's required generally in digital. And now I'm going to sort of pitch it quite high for you lot, because I feel in this room and with our operations as a background, it's beyond just doing what you're good at and all the rest of it, where you might go in your careers and making things better in terms of process and outcomes and giving great service. I genuinely believe that the future leaders in Australia for digital are going to come out of adults. Having a deep understanding of what is actually going on. When I meet some senior kind of digital execs, this, that, and the other, the fact that they just don't actually kind of get the detail or want to really live and breathe a really innovative and kind of more agile way of executing, getting products out, kind of days and weeks, not months and years, terrifies me. And I think that's something naturally ad operations deals with very, very, very well. A lot of the innovation that I see within some of the just to talk about REA, some of our areas, divisions, again, it's not quite right, but call them business units, is fantastic. I'm deeply proud of what a couple of those groups are up to. The innovation is genuine and it's exciting. This is a slide by a guy called Brian Solis that does quite a lot of interesting stuff around that in digital transformation. So think about that for yourselves in terms of where you can go. I'm trying to give some reasons for that. I'm running a little bit over time, but anyway. To think about the very basis of kind of what you do every day and actually why that's incredibly valuable moving forwards. So yeah, there's a lot of admin. There's a lot of kind of stuff. And do you know what? I'm sorry to say this, but it's 100% SLA. Like, you cannot make a mistake. As much as it's harsh, and I talk a lot about this with my staff. We did a kick-off recently where it's like, you do 99 things well, you do one thing wrong, and everyone will have a big cry and all the rest of it. It's like, okay, but unfortunately, that's the world we live in. Putting an extra naught or dropping a naught is a big deal. Jesus Christ, particularly if you're buying, you know what I mean? Is that the price or is that the volume? You're talking disaster. And all of you have your little bits of discipline around getting your admin absolutely spot on. And you know, I talk about it at ours about in terms of embrace your inner OCD. Like it's not such a bad thing. I'm a very, very chaotic person. And somehow can you imagine, you know, trafficking endless line items, campaigns, and just actually getting super anal about all of that and never ever dropping the ball. And I had my little routines and disciplines that was essentially around never trusting myself and always having to double check myself. It wasn't very efficient, but it teaches you really, really well for wherever you go in your career. That sheer attention to detail and just care, genuine care. It's important. So, you know, there are people that look at the admin side of ops and go, oh, and actually I'm like, no mate, that is a strength. Do not understand. Get that right and you'll carry that through whatever you do. Technology. I mean, again, talking about those sort of C-level digital people I've met, the ones that don't actually get the technology, or even curious, or even excited by it, or even slightly interested, genuinely terrifies me. I mean, I honestly think that's a disgrace. They should be fired. No, well, maybe not. But certainly, anyone in this room needs to have that curiosity and excitement about it. And if you're not, you're probably in the wrong game. Because it's important, and at least having a respect for it and understanding that it's important. And everyone's got the technical magicians that we love that can just have that API mindset to absolutely everything. Great, it's exciting, it's important. Retaining that, certainly for where we're going in digital, absolutely critical. Absolute starting point. Product, with sales, with contracts, with finance, you do that stuff day in, day out. You don't even understand the value of that. Other functions are not so great at that. It's a great strength. These three areas that sort of can be pointed at or taken the piss out of in some ways, are absolutely, really your core strength for what you're doing now, what you're doing in the future. That's you guys as people and the organisations you work at. And so it's about having a little bit of belief, I sometimes find, to understand, as such subject matter experts, that your opinion really, really counts. It's really, really important for you, for your organisations. Let's pitch it high for digital in Australia, for you to be able to stand up and have a little bit of bravery and know that your inner voice is actually right. And it's a really, really interesting thing when it comes to leadership, for instance. So our old CEO, a guy called Greg Ellis, that's nipped on to Europe now, he had a big opinion about future leaders, and it's the one thing he wanted to see, and it's the one thing I always see in good adults people. It's high ability, low ego. The number of times I'm talking or dealing with my adults guys, they know the answer. They just daren't say it, or they just don't feel it's their place to say it. It's amazing. It's lovely. It's beautiful. I adore it. There are times when just to see people evolve and open up, show that ability and the leadership potential sitting within a group, a skilled group that's generally been underloved and underrepresented is astonishing. And I think it's something to really, really think about moving forward. And that's the reason that we've got an event like this. That's the reason we're all getting together and hanging out and trying to sort of talk through the bits that matter to us all, the organisations that we're at, and the industry we're in. One last story. So I remember, so I've been here just over 2 years on POM, to work that out. And talking to a very senior digital person who literally runs digital for one of the big companies. I can't say the person's name, not even aware of the gender. Anyway, we're having a discussion about ops, basically. And that person's opinion was, they're just trafficking monkeys, aren't they? Just like, why don't we outsource that shit to India? I was just like, oh my God, honestly, you don't even understand. I don't think that person knew my background for a start, which is kind of quite funny. But also, like, what? Not even understanding what people are doing. And there is a bit of thing at all businesses, like, people just don't actually know what adults do. They don't take off. They're like programmatic specialists, they're all too hard. And that whole like trafficking monkey thing just annoyed me so much. It was incredible. And it shows at times the level of ignorance, and it's quite normal, but if I'm allowed to say it, I've noticed it here more than anywhere else. I remember thinking at that very, very time, like, there's a Banksy slide for that one. So it's absolutely true. Let them laugh, but one day you'll all be in charge. So enjoy today, have a great time, get stuck in, all the usual mantras around that, and please bear in mind that sense of community piece. Like, this is for all of us to see what it looks like in the future. Certainly there's a commitment from the IAB to deliver it, give it the structure that we want, and that interstate thing remains, and I think there's great value there for the sponsors in the room, and thank you again for supporting something that I genuinely believe, and we all believe, will be unique. And thank you also to the Standards and Guidelines Council for all getting stuck in and working this out between them. Thank you very much. But have a great day.